What's up, world? This is Erman Baradi. Thank you so much for tuning in. For those who know me, you know that I've done a lot of entertainment industry events, but this summer I've done a lot more political interviews. And what we love doing is interviewing people who break the stereotype, break the mold. We hear a lot of identity things like nowadays, or labels rather. You have to be, if you're black, you have to vote this way. If you're gay, you have to vote this way. If you're Asian, you have to vote this way. So I like to touch base with folks who may think differently from the mainstream way of doing things. So today we have Fernando Acosta, the New York State Director of the Black Conservative Federation. Welcome, Fernando.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I mean, I wear many hats in the state of New York. I'm also the outreach chairman for the New York Young Republicans, which,
Okay.
If people have done their research, we're on the map. We're
Yeah.
all over the place. And also advisor for the Republican Hispanic caucus as well.
Okay.
I like to speak Spanish sometimes.
I hear a little bit of
Yeah, you
I
can
hear a
hear
little
it.
bit
You
of
can
it.
hear it. You can
Yeah.
definitely hear it.
And what people love about what I do is I'm not a journalist. I'm here talking to people like
Good.
from human to human, as
Yeah.
a fellow human being, So
This
we
is
like to
what we
give
need
folks
more. This
absolutely.
is yeah.
We like to give folks their time to speak with no judgment, no people interrupting them, no one bickering with them. So that's what my series is about, and it's completely unedited, cut. We are gonna upload it as it is. So Fernando, I'd
Cool.
love to know your upbringing. How were you raised? Where were you from originally? Your environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I come from New York. I have to say it's the epicenter of a replica of Mad Max right now. So I grew up in the Bronx, North Bronx. Casual guy. I'm first generation immigrant. So parents, they didn't have all the tools. They just had what they had. They just came here, like, look, I'm coming here. I'm gonna pop some babies, and we'll hope for the best. And I just, I grew up. It wasn't the same as everyone else. I knew that because my path was different, and I accept that more than ever. And and I just kept on, just doing through you could say the system. Go to school, do some after school programs, and little by little, I started questioning the society around me. Knowing that I'm the one taking the mantle. I'm the oldest of three kids. I have to take the mantle, and I have to show to my parents and to my brothers how I see the world and the
Yeah.
way it is, and especially being that I'm in possibly the only type of country that can actually experience this type of experience and not be well, now it's more questionable with the way society's going, but I just had the opportunity. So I started questioning more stuff, and then I really started getting into politics. It was I don't know. I just enjoyed the people engagement over one person, and I'm not trying to say that if it's like more of like the ego driven side or of anything. Not at all. I truly enjoyed watching people talking about what's going on in their neighborhoods, what's going on within the country, what's going on internationally. I just find it fascinating. So I remember back in 1996, I stood up all late. I forgot what age I was. I was probably like in the second grade or kindergarten. And I was watching the re-election of Bill Clinton. And I was like, oh, Bill's got this. Yeah, Monica Lewinsky stuff happened later on, but he got that election, and he did. He was looking strong during those years. There's some questionable stuff, and of course, I'll be more than happy to dive deeper to that. But then, but what really sparked my interest was the 2000 election between Bush and Gore, because here comes his vice president under the Clinton administration. Most people will say guaranteed win, and it was the first historic tie. And that we ended up having the Supreme Court deciding who was going to be the next president, which ended up being George Bush. And from that day on, I mean, I remember staying up till 4 o'clock, just learning about the breakdown, learning about how the numbers in Florida wasn't adding up and stuff. So that came along. And then right about high school, I would say, I was like, oh man, I'm really not a fan of Bush. I'm not really a fan of these Democrats. They're kind of full of it. I mean, I get it. I kind of do believe in universal health care. I kind of don't. I don't know if I want people covered, but I don't want the government to be involved with everything, plus the sun and the moon. So then, a little old man decided to run, and I got hooked, like hooked, like a drug addict hooked on his work. And of course, that's Ron Paul.
Okay. Yeah. No, he's very probably.
Yeah.
Looking back, I realized that a lot of people that I knew, he was popular among them. Young, old, black, white, from people I knew. So.
Yeah. So, so I read more of his works, and I believed more of his philosophy, and then I started reading more of Franklin Douglas, who I would claim he's more like the definition of how Republicans should be during this time, especially we're in a place where we have to adapt constantly. I think Franklin Douglas was a perfect example, as well as I think Ron Paul. So I will consider, like right now, of course, I'm a registered Republican. Some people will say my philosophy is more libertarian, and that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, I do believe in the individual having the will and not the individual depending on a group of others. So that came about, Ron Paul, man, I was a registered libertarian at that time, so I voted libertarian every election cycle. So I'm actually one of those weird people that never voted for Obama. I contemplated about voting for Romney, and I was like, nah, that dude's he's a loser, and he's clearly a loser now. And then, throughout this whole time, there was a person that I just always, look up. Like, I look up to a lot of people who are just known to have a great portfolio when it comes to business, like community driven, and always been known of giving back. And one of those persons was Donald Trump. I mean, this guy, let's be real, before all this election stuff happened, we were hearing him about everywhere. If it's not him making fun of Rosie O'Donnell, it was him at The Apprentice. If it wasn't there, he was in Oprah every other month for people who watched Oprah during those times.
Right.
And he was mentioned in rap songs. He was like, look, rest in peace, Mac Miller. I love the guy. But, the Donald Trump song really helped him blow up on the map. I mean, people don't want to say that, but I'll say it.
That's fair. Yeah.
But there's reasons why they picked him, because, they know that individual was known in the greater good of society as a man that gave back. Look, I'm a guy who, again, from New York, all I hear about people working with Trump are positive things. There hasn't been anything negative that I've heard when it comes about Donald Trump, besides, being a typical boss, which is like, he's stern. And of course, that makes sense. So when he was talking about politics, mind you, this guy has been talking about policies probably since the early 80s.
Yeah, it's true. You see interviews. You can go back and find interviews of him talking about, I'm going to run president one day. Yeah.
Yeah. And no, it is funny because it's like there's that infamous clip with Oprah Winfrey saying, this sounds like presidential talk. And he's like, I don't know. And he said it constantly. It's like, I will not do it, or else I really do see my country going bad. And I mean, from there, like I said, always been a fan of him. And then when he announced, I was like, man, I can't believe this guy actually did it. Like, I just can't believe he's actually going to run. And I'm here like, nah, bro, I'm back in Rand Paul, bro. I don't care what no one says. I'm still a Rand Paul guy. And, next thing you know, Trump came in, and this is the funny part. Here we are, a very diverse group of individuals in the Republican side, because either way, we would have had the first black Republican, first Latino, even first woman. It was all there within the group of individuals. And they were all, traditional. Some people will say established Republicans. And here comes this guy that just had a persona and had, just had an image that was positive on the light. Let's be real. I didn't hear anything negative about, or anyone really negative when it comes to Donald Trump until he started really running for president. Yes, there were some court issues, all that stuff. Everyone goes to court. I'm going to be real. Everyone goes to court. All right. If you have a business, you're eventually going to go to court. If you have a type of status, you will go to court, because people will never be satisfied of the way you do things. That's just period. So, so once he started running, I was, I just went full throttle. I was like, dude, he knocked out my boy. Once he knocked out Rand Paul, I was like, dude, he got this. He got this in the bag. There's no way this guy was knocking out every established person and basically eliminated 2 dynasties in one election cycle.
That's true.
And that's talking about the Bushes, and we're talking about the Clintons. This is two dynasties that, you know, they thought they were set in stone for the rest of their lives, and it was eliminated under one guy. So that so he happened. I mean, that election. I mean, I personally think it's going to be studied till the end of times. He eliminated the first female, basically the first female president, because she really was entitled. The media thought she was entitled for it. And now, after this election, you know, I'm still on the bandwagon. Yes, there's minor things that I will say. Look, I wish he didn't say that, or I wish he didn't hire this person. But the tone is still there, and I still think I know it's the tone that America still needs, and it's that tone of really investing in the individual and really investing in yourself, investing in your community. Just focus on yourself. Why do we always have to question everything in government? If anything, we should start eliminating term limits when it comes to that. If I have so many questions out of a senator, why the hell am I still voting for this person? Why am I continuing? Like, this person was in my community since the 70s. Why am I still voting for this person in 2020? Let's shake things up. And if anything, that I would define that as the Trump presidency, shaking things up.
Yeah. It's funny we started off with Trump. I want to get back to Trump in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just going back a little bit, how has it been like when people find out you're a Black Republican, or you know, maybe people from your own community going, oh, you have to vote this way. You can't vote conservative. You have to vote this way. What's the reaction been like for you?
Oh, I think it's cute. I think it's adorable. I think it's hilarious that people literally have the audacity to say you have to think a certain way, or, you know, why we think, well, you're wrong. Don't you think like Black Lives Matter, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, I support proper reforms, proper policies that will help us as an individual. I try to steer my way of taking the emotional route of everything. I think it's and don't get me wrong, there's going to be moments like instantly we're going to think emotionally, but it's always better to take a step back and analyze the situation. And that's why I encourage everyone. I mean, people will say, oh my God, I love you, Nando. You're the best. Oh, you're such a nice guy. Why do you have to be a Republican, man? I gotta be. And it just shows a lot that, you know, they do trust the individual. They do rely on me when it comes to certain policies or just to talk about politics. But, you know, it's just the way that the media and the way everything else has been structured throughout society now, that we're actually targeting individuals and we have disagreements. And if anything, the reason why this country was made and the reason why we're so free that we're doing these things right now is because we have freedom of speech and the freedom of having the ideas, believing in religion. So, again, it's just, you know, people say, oh, you're a Black Republican. I mean, I dated girls that, you know, and they'll be like, oh, you're a Republican. Some of them will cut me off, and some of them will be like, well, you know, there's disagreements. Yeah. And that's because they know the individual. And it's all about the individual. All individuals will have different philosophies. As long as you meet some common grounds, yeah, that's more successful than just being with the identical person.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Relationship tips. There you go.
I should write those down. No. Let's continue there because me being an individual, just hopping on social media and seeing how people go back and forth. I don't want to blanket statement anybody, but typically, I do have to agree with you because typically when I see two people argue, I don't want to sound controversial, but sometimes you'll see like a liberal throw certain labels at people. Oh, you can't be Black conservative. That's, you know, that's a party of racism. That's a party of xenophobia. But then like you know, and other conservatives will throw back statistics and actual, you know, facts and they can show figures and all that stuff. So.
And these are some. I'm not gonna vouch and say all conservatives are alike or all Republicans are alike.
Exactly.
Because again, that's just not my core. I believe in the individual. So yes, I do. I know a couple of individuals that will just take a blank route and just, you know, continue on with a liberal that would call them names. Or there's some conservatives out there that, you know, will break down the stats, will give them history. It's not like we're trying to give you a whole Darth Vader speech of like join the dark side. It's more of We just want you to know where we're coming from, because this is just, it's not like we woke up one morning and was like, I'm going to be a freaking Republican.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny you said that. That's the reaction I get usually from people, because they don't usually start off automatically there. They took their time to get there. So question for you, and this might be a little controversial too, but you touched on it earlier. When I speak to people on both sides of the spectrum, some of them will agree that, because of this, you can't go anywhere this summer without talking about like Black Lives Matter, right? So the message, Black Lives Matter, which is, if you're not racist, then you agree with that statement, right? But then you also have like a movement and campaign. Do you believe those can be separate? Like, you can believe in this, but have problems with this? And if so, what do you agree with and what do you not agree with?
Honestly, it's hard to even agree to anything about Black Lives Matter because of everything that's been happening in a couple of months. And what do I mean by that? It's more of how they're basically selling up Black people to promote their agendas. And agenda being that, they're talking about policies that are, completely ludicrous when you really think about it. You can't, nothing in life is free. So that's one thing I believe in through and through. And the fact that we're having this dialogue of talking about free education, not free education, but more towards like just free rent cancellation, which is mind-boggling to me, because that literally destroys the whole real estate industry right there. Slushing down budgets just so it could go to another one and not questioning that other one. Like, look, I get it. There are corrupt police force out there. There's corrupt departments out there. Overall, there's corrupt departments of education. There's corrupt departments of energy. Like, why are we sticking to one department? Just what? Just so you can have more money for what? So it could create more debt into a state that eventually going to belly flop? Like, seriously. So once they started doing that, I was like, I just can't, personally, I just can't be a part of it, because it's just wrong. Because at the end of the day, you're selling my image or selling my skin tone for your agenda. And then they're donating all this money to this organization where is it going to go to? Is it going to go directly to Joe Biden? Is this like just a fancy way of just getting more money for Democratic candidates? Or anyone that leans toward left, because it is a left ideology, let's be real. A good chunk, everything is a good, their whole platform is a leftist ideology, extreme leftist. So once I see this happening, I'm like, I don't want to be a part of it. I refuse. By all means, of course, I'm the first one that's working out with the community. I've done job fairs. I've done food drives. I actually, went out there and ensured that my people around my community are feeling safe, are feeling educated, are feeling supportive, because that's what it's all about. As an individual, you believe in paving the way, you pave that way for others. And that's what I'm doing every day. There's a reason why I'm carrying multiple hats. If it's not a state director, outreach guy, or, just advising people.
Yeah.
I'm trying, look, I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm not trying to use it to manipulate people and just voting a certain way. Because at the end of the day, you're just really mind controlling people to just think of a certain way when it comes to this message. And then you're using people who have died, and you don't even know this individual. Like there's been reports of, like, once, and may he rest in peace, George Floyd, that happened. It's a horror, absolutely, but no one questioned the whole situation. We should have questioned the whole thing. Like, how is this possible that this police had the audacity to feel comfortable in putting a knee on a person? And then when you read more about it, then you read that this was a corrupt cop that was constantly in trouble, that was constantly getting attention by local politicians there. And the AD at that time, which, she ran for president, Amy Klobuchar, let it slide. The mayor let it slide. So the responsibility should have been targeted at them as much as the police. But no, we were targeting the police. And then we're now targeting them just completely. Just being, look, and I get it. Look, there's been mistakes. There has been issues that should be addressed. but we have to address our local politicians that has allowed this to continue.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna refuse to the day, or else for some reason I'll wake up one morning and say, wow, these Black Lives Matter people really make sense. No, until then, until they start acknowledging the real problems and stop making it sound like a political pack, because that's what it really sounds like when people do their work. It sounds like a political party pack that is just gonna take money, frame Black, use our image for their own agenda.
That's a really strong statement. Well, thanks for being super open about that. I mean, like I said, I'm not here to filter nobody. So how do you feel about cancel culture? It's happens
bullshit.
all the time. Okay.
It's bullshit. Because again, this is going against the First Amendment. I'm sorry to say, people are going to disagree with you. People are going to say mean things. But I prefer people saying mean things than actually physically hurting people. Get what I'm saying?
Fair enough. Yeah.
I am I the only one that forgot, like, sticks and stone will break my bones, but crummy words will not? I mean, we all grew up to that. What the hell did that happen? It just went out of retirement, and then we just decided that to be replaced by cancel culture? Like, what's up with that? And so this, people, I feel offended. I don't give a crap you feel offended. You feel offended, by all means, feel offended. If anything, it either encourages you to do better or, just cut the individual off. At the end of the day, it's still your decision. You still have that choice. But to say that, why is people not thinking this way? Why are they not agreeing with me with that and this and that? And no. Now you're just being a baby. You're being a baby. You're pointing fingers and not accepting your own responsibility as an individual. When you come to those type of things, cut it off. Cut people off. It's fine. People do that all the time. We create block buttons. We created the delete button for those reasons. So the whole cancel culture, which is now the cancel culture is really eating each other alive, because now we have people like even J.K. Rowling, which is like a Raleigh. She's like the definition of a liberal. Basically, we need to cancel this because it's going crazy. Because she had a duking out with Stephen King about just the word with just pronouns, which that's another thing that I think is ridiculous as well.
Yeah, I got to read up on that, but I did see a little bit about that. So thanks for pointing that out, because I got to read it. So what do you do on a daily basis, being the state director of the Black Conservative Federation and wearing other hats?
Yeah, I do a lot of consulting jobs. I help out some political campaigns here and there. And I'm also an analyst for a company, which I'll keep it, of course, anonymous. So I'm an analyst there. So I do a lot of analytical work, to be honest. So it's either, so I do that. That's my 9 to 5. And then if it's not that, it's just me, going to local communities, supporting people who are running for public office, and just hopefully, they have the agenda that I strictly believe in, and it's really more of not letting people depend on others. It's really more letting that individual decide for themselves. That eventually will help out others, because that's how I'm doing it right now. Because once you start investing in yourself starts getting really boring once you really get the nooks and crannies of it. You want other people to start investing with you.
What issues are most important to you nowadays? Like, when it comes to the 2020 election, what is it that you're focusing on?
No, honestly, it's crazy to me, because right now what's my number one thing is just to end this type of movement that people think is the future of America right now. This socialist ideology. And look, socialism could work in very small populations. Again, everyone will bring out the stats, and this is all stuff that are like very, very small countries or very, very small states. And there's a reason for that. But to say that we should allow the federal government to be responsible of allowing these type of policies, it's going to implode just like the Roman Empire did. So my goal is simple. I'm just going to vote for the person that's very pro-American. And look, it just so happens to be the current president right now. And don't get me wrong, he is one entertaining guy. He is. But there are policies there that I'd be more than happy to talk about, and stats there that has actually helped improve America. That
Okay, let's go there.
Oh, absolutely, no problem.
Let's go there.
So yeah, Black American unemployment was an all-time low. We all know that. Entrepreneurship was an all-time high as well. Throughout the growth between once Obama left in office and now where it is right now, there has been tremendous growth when it comes to small business owners and business in general. Again, First Step Act. I still find it fascinating that it took a Republican president to allow that to happen. The amount of rollbacks that happened towards corporation, to the point that a lot of people are now getting jobs that are very livable wages. And I'm not talking about just the $15 an hour. I'm talking about salaries like 40, okay, 50K. So, and I've seen it firsthand. I've seen people whose paychecks have increased tremendously. Let's see, what else? Look, this is also another shocking topic. We're now talking about sex trafficking.
That's true. Yeah.
Now more than ever. I find that fascinating that it happened under a Trump administration. This is something that he did within his first 60 days in office, was signing an executive order cracking down on sexual predators and this sex trafficking in general. And look what has happened throughout the media period. So it's there. It's there. There's evidence constantly around when it comes to this demand success. And look, for those who invest in stocks, not right now because we all know it's not the best. But compared to the start of the Trump presidency to now, there has been a tremendous amount of effort being applied of the individual of being successful. So if you were really like invested with yourself back in 2016, you're most likely guaranteed doing 10 times better now if you invested in yourself. Now, if you're a bum, you're a bum. We can't change that. That's something that the individual has to do yourself. But again, there has been a tremendous opportunity zones. That's another one, which is
with Tim Scott.
With Tim Scott, which is, that's pouring federal money into these low-income communities to better themselves. If anything, it helps combat this whole gentrification myth that everyone has, to let these individuals fight toe-to-toe and let them, have a piece of the pie. So, again, there's a lot more I could talk about. The green, people will say, now more than ever, when it comes to carbon emissions, we're the lowest when it comes to carbon emission compared to India and China.
True. Yeah.
So you're telling me under the President Trump's administration, we're now more greener. So I get it. Yeah. Some people say, well, he's cutting back a lot of laws that was implemented for the EPA. Well, look, I'm going by the stats here. It seems like we don't need these laws anymore. And why would I create more loopholes when I just want the American individuals to, as long as they're not effing up people's, personal pursuit of happiness, what else there is to do?
Now, you mentioned the media earlier, which is funny because those who look at my stories on Instagram, I talk about the media a lot and how it, it can persuade or distract or, media has a big role in how we as a society think of people, right? So for you as a pro-Trump guy, any specific moment you can draw out that you said, wait a minute, he didn't say that, or he said it, but it was a different context. What specific moments can you say that media has twisted things?
It's every other day. The Univision that I remember throughout the campaign, it was that Univision situation with George Ramos, where, George Ramos was rude. You're having a press conference, you have another dude shouting out constantly, and, Trump said, get out, go back to your channel, go back to Univision. But they cut that portion to make it sound like he was just pointing at a Hispanic reporter and just kicking him out. What else? There's so many. There was also, this is more recent, but this is during the pandemic, where, people will say he barged off, he just left, he left, he was mad during a pandemic press conference. Yeah.
Okay.
The whole bunker situation. Look, this is like police protocols. I mean, not police. Secret Service protocols, and that would have been implemented under Obama.
Anybody. Yeah.
Anybody. All right. So, are you really gonna, like, seriously? Like, I don't even want to even talk about it because it's pretty ridiculous. So what I was talking about was a pandemic news outbreak. There was like a one woman that he apparently walked off, but it was because these reporters were, again, shouting to the 10th degree. Like, if I was an individual that invited you to my event, why are you not going by the agreements that we both agreed on as a party? Like, you're going there shouting out, and then you're like, oh no, I'm going to let my other colleague finish his or her question. I'm like, no, bro, I cut that dude off. I'm up to you. Say what you got to say. So, there's a lot of things that, if we could point some out, I would be more than happy to. But
there's a tweet that I want to point. There's not a tweet of his, but a tweet that I saw somebody write, and it kind of like made me think a little bit. Usage of the word thug. So for those who look back, and someone pointed this out to me, so I had to look it up myself. So Obama in 2015 used the word thug to describe.
Oh, yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then in 2017, Trump used it to describe certain people, but he also denounced neo-Nazis, KKK. He called them thugs, and people don't remember that. Yeah. And then in 2020, he once again used it, but then people automatically associated with, calling Black people thugs, but in the tweet itself, you don't see the word black. You just see the word thug. So, what's your reaction to that? To how they kind of just manipulate that? Playing devil's advocate.
No. This is a great topic because this is another reason why the individuals or whoever thinks that negative way has been tormented by the way the media addresses it. So, I remember the tweet where he basically says, thugs, and when they start the shooting, we start the looting, or when they start the looting, we start the shooting.
Okay.
Which, guys, let's take a look at what happened at that time. There were people breaking into small business owners, ripping them into shreds. If you're gonna loot my place, I'm gonna freaking shoot you out. It's like I'm trying to protect my property here. So when
some of those were black businesses as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was horrible. I mean. Actually, there was an infamous part that happened in the Bronx as well. There was a lot of looting in the Bronx. And look, I wasn't there, but I had family members that were there, and they were devastated by how many small businesses were destroyed. And what for? I mean, what are you going to get across? I mean, if you really feel that you want to get things across, stop voting for the same career politician. That's the start. You have people that, people will say, in Baltimore, for example, which is very corrupted in their own very ways, that they have politicians there that's from the 80s that were elected, still serving the House that's we're in the 2000s, and, it hasn't really improved. There hasn't been anything really helpful for them. So that's one start. And the fact that you're trying to take away, basically, I would say that the hand that feeds you guidance, which is a small business owner, because this is a person within your community saying, look, you could make it. You could actually put some money in your pocket. Just got to focus on yourself. You're destroying them. You're a thug. I don't care what no one says. You're a thug. You're a scumbag. And if you decide to even step foot in my door thinking that you're going to get something from me without my acknowledgement, you're toast. So that's where people should think when it comes to that. Of course, you said it best. This is a term that has been used by previous presidents, and this is also the Baltimore riots that happened under the Obama era, that he used the term thugs, because there are thugs. They're thugs. You're sad people for excuses to living in this world, and it's sad. And you should be called out what you are.
Interesting. Question about the I have a question about the modern perception of conservative. Because, of course, I feel like nowadays, in terms of mainstream media, in terms of like social media, there are certain people who are hidden or not saying anything because they're scared of being called out by their local friends. So how do you think that should be changed, if there is a way to change that, should people just step
It
up and
is.
say, hey,
It is. And you know what you do? And the way to do it is just to be involved. Um, there's one thing I would say Democrats are really good at, and they're really good at, trying to be approachable. We're trying to be as modern as they could possibly be, trying to be, relatable and understanding issues, That's one thing I think that the Republican Party, the GOP, has, they're working on it now because Trump has put the fire on them when it comes to this, to just be like, look, guys, you have to talk about these issues. You have to talk. Like, look, we have Trump that's solidly focused on having a bigger turnout when it comes to African American votes. That's a bona fide fact. Latinos, this is a bona fide fact. Like, he has been having probably an event that deals with the people of color every other day in the White House. Not every other day,
I see
every other
pictures.
month.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see it. You see it. So if I was a Republican Party, I will adapt to that. And, some people will have the picture of Republicans and they just think of old white guy, and that should be completely eliminated. And I think Trump has done a tremendous job in doing that because he's orange, of course. But again, this is, Trump has started a fire on the Republican Party and the GOP party that, you guys should be focused on community outreach. You should focus on going into doors and talking about these situations. Trump was a guy in New York. Yeah, he was making bank, but he was still going up in Harlem, talking with Harlem Nights, chilling with Harlem Nights. That's a bona fide fact because I talked to them myself, and they told me Trump will be here every other weekend hanging with us, and he will help out small business owners that needed loans that the bank would decline. That's a fact. There's videos of people saying that as well.
I mean, to your credit, you do see organizations. Yeah. I did some research. I saw some pictures. Like at the White House, he'll meet with I think Black Voices for Trump and
Trump, which I'm good friends with them. They're good people.
Different organizations. They're like, wait a minute, they exist? How do they exist? But you see it. Latinos for Trump, Black Voices for Trump. You'll even see like Asian Americans for Trump. So
they're out there.
They're out there, and it's funny to me because it's 2020. In 2020, the party doesn't look like what people expect it to look like. Even people running on a local and state level, a mixed bag of people. They're not just old white guys.
Yeah, no, I know sisters that are running as Republicans. I know Latinos that are running on Republicans. I'm helping out a friend of mine who's in Harlem running as a Republican because they're just sick and tired of the way that some of these Democrats are running the show. And that's what it takes. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of them are going to lose. But some of them will win because, they have that, they know they got that attitude, they got that fire in them. And to say that I'm not going to give credit to Trump is ludicrous because, if anything, I give more credit for Trump for saying, look, we need to, that's the whole ideology when it comes to America First, is invest in yourself. That's it. So it's out there. I think it's still being clouded. Again, this is all media. And that's why I'm like, I don't really see, I mean, I kind of have to watch news because of my political way, the political portion of me. But at the same time, there's days when I do not want to watch the news. I just do not. I refuse to watch CNN. And sometimes I refuse to watch Fox News. Because, it's just, sometimes it's just a bit over-exaggerating, to be fair. And, I'm better off just reading some articles, which, again, even news articles are being baloney. When it comes to addressing some issues. But, as long as I'm reading multiple sources, eventually you're going to get something there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to get a message there that you're like, wow, I see that they're all reporting this, but there's one thing that's happening that no one else is talking about, and that's where I come in.
It's great you said that because I even tell my friends, hey, don't watch or read one thing because that, I mean, obviously any platform is biased, so read another one to balance it out and see what is the common thread here. What did they both say? That's right. Balance, You touched on it a little bit earlier. I did want to end on this. You touched on it a little bit earlier. You mentioned how there are some things in your party that you kind of want to change or different, or you don't believe in or agree with, and then there might be some things on the other side you were like, okay, I can see that benefiting people. So what is it, if we can find some common ground here, what is it about the liberals that you do kind of like, and what is it about your own party that you're like, I wish this was different?
I wish the Democrats were more focused on paving a way for the individual than the individual being dependent. That's really one thing. I do like how Democrats are, they are engaging. I'm not gonna lie, they're very engaging individuals. Some of them, not all. There's some of them that you're like, but there's some of them, that they do have rights. Why are these prices are going skyrocketing? Why are this is going this and that and that? However, as a Republican, I would say it's because of all these regulations that you're making it impossible for anyone who is trying to make just a decent profit. So, for example, I'm a business owner, I'm selling something, you create 5 different taxes. I have no choice but to make some money out of, like, on my end, I have to raise the prices so I can meet ends meet. So when you hear about this rent, like you hear about renting, mortgage, all this stuff, you gotta before attacking the owners of those businesses, question what are these legislations that are in these taxes that are happening that makes them, go for this route. And then you read that, for example, New York State passes property taxes, again, increased property taxes so they could pay off their debt from this pandemic that happened because they couldn't even keep a balanced budget. So realistically, a lot of people who are staying in New York that has to deal with this, it's either A, they're going to pay a high rent, or B, the business, the property managers and management are going to lose so much money that they're going to end up foreclosing the place. That makes it even harder for the tenants. So again, this is me going to the yin and the yang. So when it comes to like the positive and the negatives,
right.
Now for Republicans, it's more of outreach, which again Trump has done a phenomenal job with it. I would say that through and through. I don't care what no one says, but people say, well, the way he says it, he says mean things, blah 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 blah. But people also have to think that Trump comes from a generation that is like blunt, no tolerance, like. He will say how it is. This is a guy that grew up in the Frank Sinatra era. All these, John Wayne, people that were, you got to get things going. We don't care how you feel. It's about getting the job done. So this is where he's coming from, which I absolutely agree 110%. And it's still a tone that I think the majority of people should have. It's, set aside that emotion and step forward. But a lot of people within the GOP, they just have a hard time acknowledging the fact that, you have to go to like those inner city communities. You have to, reach across party lines and get things done. And, it's, you want to be like all crucial about their principle and all. And I'll be the first one. I am very strict when it comes to the Constitution and such, because I prefer having this Constitution, which is not perfect. I mean, people will say the Constitution is not perfect. But God damn it, I prefer having that than any other structure of government that the rest of the world has.
Okay, fair. Yeah.
So I guess that's the negatives.
For now, it's such a pleasure to speak with you, man. Before we go, where can we find you? Where can we get in touch with you, whether on social media or do you have an official site? Maybe you can plug the Black Conservative Federation site. Sure.
You can go to Black Conservative Federation of New York. If you type it in on Facebook, you can find us there. You can donate at black.gop as well. And make sure you put in the comments, New York Nando. But you can also find me just typing down Nando Acosta. You can find me on Twitter, Nando Acosta, Facebook, Nando. I'm not as active on Facebook, and guys, I'm trying to.
That's how I found you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. But I'm trying to, produce more video because people like these conversations that I have. So yeah, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, eventually, Nando Acosta. Definitely feel free to send a message. I'm always willing to talk to people. I think that's the key, is really talking to folks to really get change done. And NandoAcosta.com too. I actually have a website. I have a domain, but I haven't built a site.
You're like, wait a minute, I have a site, right? Yeah, I have a site.
Yeah, I do. So I should be more invested in myself, but I feel like I've been more crazed on making sure that the other individuals invest in themselves. That way my society can be better and not go into this deep, dark future where we, it's so funny that that's just another stuff. liberals, Democrats will say we're fighting the 1%. But I'm telling them, if you continue on passing these policies, the only people you are going to trust are these individuals who are considered the 1% of America, and those are your elected politicians.
Ooh, okay.
So,
Fernando, thank you so much, bro. I mean,
got it,
regardless
bro.
of people agree with you or not, I look forward to more of you.
No, absolutely, man. I mean, I'll be around. I'm not going anywhere.